making it through the weather. I'm excited to talk to you guys about how you're going to try to become as cool as Grove 34 over in Bushwick. No, so I just talked to Hannah Lieberman, who's doing QED. She just bought QED.
Yes.
Super exciting. And I'm as fascinated with this kind of post-pandemic thing. For me, it started before, but it's like, I think it kind of just like this moment in time where, all over in all types of arts and industries, people are just like having this real desire to build something themselves. And I think in the comedy world, we've seen that in Tiny Cupboard was like probably the first one. And then there's been a bunch of these, like what I would call, startup comedy clubs or boutique comedy clubs or pop-up, however you want to call it. And people ask us all the time about QED, and come over and be like, oh, you guys are so much better or whatever. Or they'll try to get me to talk shit about them. And it's like, first of all, in New York City, people live within blocks.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that you think that anyone's like all the way on the other side, I want to get over there more and I don't. It's just too far. And then also you're competing with a million fucking bar shows and other types of entertainment, and it's New York City, and it's like there's shitty bar shows on your street where it's a bunch of people forcing comedy in a room where it's not and everyone didn't know there was a thing there and they fucking hate it, and everyone is I never want to see this again. And so to me, anyone who's doing the work to create an elevated space that's dedicated towards this thing that we love, which the other part of this is anyone who gets into comedy, the business of comedy, is stupid.
Insane.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've been doing a lot of our books and accounting because there's truth in stereotypes, but also when I look at us and I'm like.
We
wow.
need a Jewish guy at our Grove 34. I'm not gonna lie, our books need a.
I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look after. It's tax season.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah, hell yeah.
But when I look at how we're doing, and I'm like, we're in no ways in a bad situation. I'm like, no, but this is working. This is good.
Yeah.
And we're really trying to get efficient. I could not understand how anyone could make this this is my one thing right now without doing some crazy either exploitive or just straight up doing it in certain locales and locations.
Yeah.
Because the money just is not there in the same way other businesses are.
You have to have the mental illness of wanting to be a stand-up comedian that drove you to this place
to do it.
And then also I'd like to hear your thoughts about this, where it's I do think everybody starts does what we have done because they want to get control their destiny a little bit better, right?
Sure.
And a more gay way of saying that is we want to get on stage more, so we built a stage that we can put ourselves on all the time. And that feels gross a little bit, but it's also it also quickly you kind of grow, I think, out of that really fast, and you see, I won't speak for you guys, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say, but I feel a sense of curation. I feel a sense of responsibility for my community and the audience that comes in here and the people that see our shows, and for the comics that come in the door. And it becomes, and then you start to take a step back and realize that your most value is not to put yourself in front of the camera all the time or whatever. It's to actually look at what's best and have an objective opinion and taste and build that from the part of you that fell in love with this art form to begin with. So I'll stop talking. You guys can tell me what you think about it. Tell me about your journey, how you guys got here. And
I'll
all
let
that.
you go through first.
Well, I think one thing that separates us is it's a lot easier to get me to talk shit.
Exactly. Of course.
It takes very little prodding to get me to start calling people shitty things and picking fights I don't need. And it's only because I've been doing this for so long, working for other people, that there wasn't some sort of idea of fuck it, I'll do it myself. It's that I'd already been doing it myself in various arrangements for 13 years at this point, that the idea of doing more of that is actually easier.
Yeah.
If you want to know what it's like to be me, just try running multiple shows a week at other people's venues, and you're already doing something harder than what we do every week.
For sure.
If you have a weekly show at 2 different comedy clubs, that is more stressful than running all the shows at one comedy club.
Yeah.
Because every time this business is compounded with other complexities, other people's vision, other extraneous needs, you get further away from what you set out to do. And that's not always a bad thing. Like, we have a voting system when we add comics to our roster where we all 3 have to unanimously agree on someone to add them. And it does let really good comics slip through the cracks on occasion when there's a difference of opinion. But it also means that roster of like 100-ish people we have right now is rock solid because it accounts for individual biases in a way that I couldn't when I book shows myself. That's a complexity that I actually like working with.
Sure.
What I am thrilled to not have to work with is we don't have a kitchen, we don't have a wait staff, we don't have the complexities of running a comedy club and a bar and grill at the same time. We don't have the complexities of having an entire bar staff to be responsible for, things like that. There's so many overhead expenses that you realize, oh, that's why the 2-drink minimum is there. That we managed to just carve that entire part of the business out and exist without it so far.
Yeah.
I'm sure with Grove, you've experienced that where it's like, there's no kitchen here. There's no staff running around with waiters and waitresses. Like, there is a business model of comedy that I think exists, which is stripping out all the things that are external to the performance of the show and trying to really streamline to be like, hey, all these expenses that do generate more revenue but can detract from the audience experiences and like the club in general's experiences of the performance of whatever it is. If it's stand-up, it's improv, whatever. That's something for me personally. I've wanted to create a business model that works around that.
Yeah.
And you've been in the trenches. QED has been in those kinds of trenches. There are these places that I think are building a new business model of comedy, which is what people imagine the stress and friction of attending a comedy show. Someone badgering you for drink minimums. Someone asking you for your order when the comic's on stage. I had to sign this check. I'm getting out of here. Like, we could strip away all of that and give you a much more seamless comedic experience, more relaxed experience. You come out of there feeling, wow, I had a really good time. You walk into a Broadway show, you sit down, you watch the show, you intermission, you get yourself a drink, you come back in, and you're like, I felt really good and comfortable. For people's association with comedy up until now, it's been like, I'm getting harassed at gunpoint to make sure I get my second drink. And I'm like, that seems insane to me.
Sure.
The other thing, I love the Comedy Cellar as a venue. It's a great room setup, great lineups. What I never understood was the reservation system they use. They don't sell you tickets directly. They sell you a reservation that you then claim when you get there, and there's a standby line that wraps around the side of the building outside, and whether you have a ticket or not, you got to show up early and stand in a line. I'm like, man, why don't y'all just sell them tickets? Why don't y'all just charge them what the ticket costs, and then when they pay it, they have it? Like, I get that you guys are an institution, but you guys existed before online ticketing was good, and now it is. You guys could keep booking the same awesome shows and save everyone 30 minutes of time beforehand.
I think there's like an exclusivity at that level where you're just like you. I mean, there is that's the mecca of comedy in my opinion. So they have a little bit of you have to pay a price of frustration to get in a little bit. I don't know. I'm not saying
they
I
view
agree
it as
with
a feature. I think they view it as a feature and not a detriment. But man, when there's snow on the ground outside, that's a harder sell.
Fuck 'em.
He's like, well, people still keep lining up, so if it ain't broken.
When the weather's nice out, you're standing in an alleyway in Greenwich Village, you're going, oh, I wonder if Judd Apatow is going to be here. That's one thing. But I see people standing out there in the rain while the Greenwich Village and the Grizzly Pear Barkers are trying to talk them out of that line.
How'd you like to be warm? Right. That's Instant Warmth is our number one headliner.
Starting a new business, we don't have the luxury of being like, we're an institution.
No.
We don't get to claim that. We don't get to claim you put up with our silly system because we are who we are. We got to be a little more accommodating.
Yeah. Well, back to the original point, though, also of like why we started doing some of these things.
Yeah, tell me the whole story about like where you guys where did you originally start from?
I'll give the first origins and timeline. So this is probably almost a year ago, frankly, to the day. That,
really?
Like, I literally was just going on my stories, and I was like, I saw Jad put on a story. I'd seen him like a month or two perform, and I was like, okay, I like this guy. And he's like, man, fuck these comedy clubs. I can run my own comedy club. Who wants to talk? And I was like, why not? Let me talk. I'm curious because I've been saving money for my job to do something comedic.
Yeah.
I thought it would be something special. I thought it would, or maybe it's like I find my own show or venue or try to do a pilot or whatever it is. I'm like, I want to do this towards some comedic venture. And I spoke with Jad. I got his philosophies. I understood like how he views comedy. And I was like, oh, I feel like I vibe and understand this. Couple more meetings were like, hey, let's start looking at venues. Let's start looking at places. I think Jad brought along Kyle. Be like, hey, this guy's I know
it's
Kyle.
just the three of you, right?
Yeah, it's just the three of us. I knew Kyle. It's like, oh, I've done like a couple of shows, and it's like, but I know him as a very competent producer and like a really good booker, and like, all right, this forms some sort of like triumvirate of like three guys that can work on something together. We started looking at venues, March, April, May. Jad is going around on Craigslist, walking around, and after a couple real estate like agents showing us places, he just like fumbles across this one Craigslist listing for what would turn into Bushwick Comedy Club. And, we start talking to the landlord. He's like, yeah, I was going to do this wine bar with a theater viewing, but I got screwed by my partners. I gutted the whole place. Do you want it for this price? And it was like really well priced. We were like, let's do it. He's like, great. I just got to make it actually livable. It'll take 3 months. September comes along. We work our asses off. We have an opening weekend, like second weekend in September. And that's pretty much been it, honestly, from there we've been running.
That's a very quick start time.
Synopsis.
Yeah.
I skip a lot of pain and triumph and things like that.
Well, there's also one step of that process we got insanely lucky, which was finding the location on Craigslist.
Yes.
We were talking to the Flophouse guys the entire time that we were looking for locations, and the amount of time it took us to find our place was a fraction of how long they were looking. They were looking for months on end. We found it in less than a month.
Yeah.
Jad and I were on Craigslist all day, every day for a couple of weeks, and we found it.
Yeah.
And there were other candidates besides the place, but most of them were in a basement. And we wanted something that was street level. Once we saw this place, it was better in every regard. We wanted 2 separate rooms. We wanted street level, and we wanted just to be in either like Bushwick area or downtown Brooklyn. Those were really the only areas we were considering.
Yeah.
Because we knew we could draw a crowd in either of those parts of Brooklyn, and we knew we were competing with businesses that we were prepared to compete with in those areas.
Yeah.
I knew going into Bushwick, the Tiny Cupboard is on the far south end of the neighborhood and is not walking distance from the parts of Bushwick that a lot of people like do nightlife activities in.
Yeah.
So we were in a more accessible area. They're also a much larger seat room than we are.
Yeah.
So our pressure to fill the room is a lot lower because our rent is cheaper and our capacity is smaller. Same with if we'd gone in downtown Brooklyn. I had no fear competing with Eastville because they're like a massive 200-seater.
Right.
If I could get a quarter of that, we're sold out.
Yeah.
And then they have like Littlefield and Union Hall are their own sort of different collectives, and they operate in Park Slope, so it's much different than what we were like looking at.
Very different business model and very different way of marketing their shows. So I wasn't ever worried about like going toe to toe with them because it was an entirely different thing. Whereas if the perfect place popped up in Greenwich Village, couldn't have even considered it.
Yeah.
Because like competing with every single club on that block and in that vicinity would have just put us immediately under the gun the second we opened.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, great. You're going to be the fifth comedy venue in a block's range. That's a lot to say.
No, yeah. I mean, there's definitely and there's pros to being in Manhattan for sure, but
oh, definitely.
A lot more foot traffic, a lot more tourists.
A lot more tourists.
If
you fuck up a show and it's just like you have a bad show, it's less like it's not as like these people will never see again. Who fucking cares?
They're lucky to speak English at this point, Like,
but in this like Astoria, like I see some of these people all the time, and like I've seen people, and if you have a bad show, they don't come back, and it's like that's a.
I would imagine your draw is similar to ours, where there's a lot of people who live in the surrounding areas, either your neighborhood or ones directly adjacent to it, who can get here faster. They can get to New York Comedy Club or something like that.
Yeah.
Because if our people aren't coming from Bushwick, they're probably coming from Bed-Stuy, Ridgewood, Crown Heights, somewhere within 20 20, 30 minutes of us
Yeah.
on that side of things. People come from further, but that's where our regulars are coming from.
What is so going into it? What was some of your like visions for the kind of club you want to create, and like how do you want to do comedy, or what do you see it becoming, and then has that changed at all as you started doing it? And have you had any competing visions that you've had to work out?
Yeah, I'll speak. I think just from there's two big perspectives. One is the business, and one is the comedy. I think I've covered this before, but like I wanted to prove this frictionless comedic business model for a venue. I want to essentially prove both to myself and to the wider industry, hey, you don't have to do all these practices in order to make a venue worthwhile. Yeah. You can strip out so much and give the pure comedic experience that people will love, and you can have a viable business.
Are you talking like just a ticket, a seat in a show? Like that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And like BYOB and like things that make the audience feel comfortable in your space rather than feeling like they're antagonized by the experience of walking into the door.
Yeah.
And again, like that's a very high level discussion that like, oh, this will be my master's thesis at my business school. Like, but that's something
Are you in business school?
No.
Okay.
I never touched it. I studied real subjects. Thank you very much.
Dude, I dropped out of business school because in your first semester they teach you what the sunken cost fallacy is. I'm like, man, you guys told us that way too early.
Yeah. Looks at tuition.
I'm like,
interesting.
with the money
You're
I
in
am
business
spending,
school now.
Yeah, I will say this too. If you're thinking of business school, just start something. I've learned everything there is to learn about starting your own business by doing it.
Yeah.
It's very much a thing where if you want to do it, just do it yourself. Don't pay someone else to teach you how to do those things. That was one big part, I think, for me personally. But then the other was comedic. It was like, look, I view New York City as such a huge mismatch of supply versus demand in terms of stage time. Mm-hmm. There's so many comedians, and then there's such few pieces of stage time a comedian can get that's valuable.
Yeah.
So to me, I see that imbalance, and I'm like, well, just to niche that scale a little bit more and cut down some of that supply, to me makes it better for both myself to be a little selfish. Hey, this is a place that I can enjoy and participate in. But like for all the comics that I love and appreciate, giving them space makes everything better. Because, now not everyone is crowded for 3 places. There's 4 or 5 or 6. Yeah. And maybe we're one club that opens and someone else asks us, hey, how do we open a club? How do we do these things? How do I get more stages out there? And we start this process of just giving more and more stage time to the wider New York City scene. Ideally, it's for people that we like and respect and who work hard, which is, I think, a big philosophy of Bushwick. We appreciate people who demonstrate, I am here to do stand-up comedy. I work hard at stand-up comedy. Here's what I can do. I'd love to do more of it. But at the very least, I would just love to see comedically more space for everyone. Yeah. Because it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
I think the philosophy and the approach I bring to a lot of the things I handle in our day-to-day and in our setup is that I think fundamentally there is a mismatch of the type of person who will be best at doing certain things and the type of person who gravitates towards that role. I think the open market doesn't always allocate people to where they shine. And specifically, I think oftentimes in a traditional role, a comedy club booker is more of a socialite. And in my opinion, a comedy club booker should be a data scientist. I have a very different approach to how we arrange our lineups and how we process booking comedians, sending avails, and things like that I've never seen another club do before, because I have a different view of what the product we sell is and how to package it. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I think there are 2 competing ideas that I hold very strongly that people would not see as meshing. The first one being, I believe that funny is funny. I do not believe in projecting my own values or my own agenda onto other people's art. I think if something triggers a laugh out of you, then it's funny. It should be an involuntary reaction. And if you're forcing yourself to laugh at something because you agree with it or not laugh at it because you disagree with it, you're holding yourself back from how being funny actually works. The other thought I have is that comedy is for everyone. Not every person can be funny, and only the funniest people work our club, but there is a type of funny that comes from every type of person. So our job is to try to eliminate our own biases when judging comedy and arrange something that represents the whole of comedy. So it may be tempting when booking lineups to look at my avails, find the comedian with the most followers and the most clout, and book them on every day they're available, and then go down from there. But that doesn't actually serve the product that we sell. There is no quote unquote.
I also agree. White dudes can be funny.
Yes. But not only that, I have this idea that there are other elements that make someone up beyond just the most basic category you can put them in. And to use an example of a comedian that we work with regularly, I highly recommend, if anyone hasn't seen Jeremiah Schur, look this guy up.
Love Jeremiah.
Funniest fucking person.
Unbelievable.
And he does not fill the same square on the lineup that a different person of his demographic does, because one white guy may be telling jokes about my wife does this, my wife does that, and another guy might go up there like Jeremiah and do magic tricks and shit. And so
he's like an Andy Kaufman style, like kind of comic.
It's my job and our job as a collective to remember every little thing that makes these people different and book and arrange lineups based on that. So when I look at filling in our schedule for the month, it's not a matter of tokenism, oh, this show needs that. It's more a matter of, okay, we just booked this guy. This next person we book to follow them should be the opposite of that. Because I believe every person in our lineup succeeds the hardest when they exist in contrast. If I book a lineup that reflects all people who do the same style of comedy I do, regardless of race or gender, if everyone's working the same premises I am, we're going to step on each other's toes all night.
You're not booking a woman on the show because it's like, oh, we need a lady. It's like no, it gets boring when it's the same perspective and 5 times in a row. It's like
we do need them, but we don't need them because we got in trouble for not booking them. We need them because I need to show.
You've only been open 6 months. Give it time.
I need to present a show that reflects the range of people that live in the city we represent, and the wide array of topics the human mind might find funny or interesting. So it's up to me to remember that people fill multiple roles in the lineup. Someone might be a better host than someone else. Someone might be super high energy while someone else might be very laid back. And I don't see other clubs taking the degree of obsession with this that we do. I think there's another level we take it to in terms of trying to identify exactly what makes someone who they are and trying to spread them out across the month to maximize that variety. I don't like the word diversity, even though I believe in it strongly, because it's a trigger word for stupid people and it makes them angry. I like the word variety because you can sneak in synonyms without people starting a political debate.
Now, one of the things I will like pretty much, me, Jag, Kyle, there's like, oh, I think this. Like, there's disagreement. There's room for all those things, obviously. But one of the most rock solid things we believe in is everyone in the show should be unique and bring something different. Because when that show ends, people are going to walk out and they'll be like, that was a great show. I loved X comedian. I loved Jeremiah. And then they'll be able to talk with him. And then someone else will be like, oh, I loved you. And then they'll talk to them. And another person will like someone else. You realize that, sure, comedy is subjective in to an extent. So why don't you just show as much of it as you can? Why show 5 comedians telling the same dating joke over and over and over again?
Another thing that people don't consider is that when you book your best comedians too much, they undervalue your stage time and treat it like an open mic.
Yeah.
That's something we've like I've been kind of trying to find a balance for, because it's like you can book the best show possible, and we do try to prioritize like getting the best comics we can get here because that is like our market is like people who don't want to go to Manhattan,
right?
So it's cool to have them here, but at the same time, like you will see, like especially if it's a showcase show and you're just booking like they don't give a fuck about it. Like they show up and they phone it in, and it's like, and it's in like, that's okay. But like there's a middle ground of a hungrier comedian who's like at the cusp with their talent that's going to bring, like you're going to get the best performance out of that and make people feel like they saw something special and unique rather than just like a guy come in and, we've had great comics here when they're just like, all right, another, yeah.
Well, here's where we have the comedic perspective, which is I'm trying these things out, like blah blah. I wrote this thing today, like let's see how it works. Like that's fine, and you should be trying to experiment and work on your craft. But then I'm here also as a venue owner. I'm like, we have paying customers that want to see some fantastic comedy.
That's the biggest thing, I think, that like, I mean, every comedian, you start this journey as a comedian because you're mentally ill. You have a hole in your soul that is not being filled with normal stuff. So you have to do this thing, and you have to get on stage, and you have to try to be seen and try to find a voice that like is that. And you see comedy, and you're like, that is my religion. And all of us are, like no one cares about anything else except like, are you funny or not? Like, and we would cut off a finger to be 10 times funnier than we are now. And that's cool. That's great. But then like you start doing it, and then you check your ego, and you have to get out of your own head and get out of your own perspective. And I think producing is one of the best ways to do that, because you start to think about the audience, and you don't just get on. You see so many young comics get on stage and they want to be like a Doug Stanhope or some punk rock kind of guy who's like, I don't give a fuck. And it's like, well, maybe you should give a little bit of a fuck,
right. Actually give him more than a couple.
Give a couple bucks, at least in the beginning, until you prove something, because like you're just denying and avoiding like the responsibility to like do something good, and then blame, like you can put your blame on everyone else when they don't, like when they're not cool, or whatever. But it's like, so producing, you get to start thinking like, don't just get up there and torch the room because you're not having fun. Like, respect the place and respect people's time that they came out to see you, and then start to like even craft like, okay, what do people want to see? What can I give some people, that the type of people that come to our shows, what can I actually create that is valuable to them and that they like? And so you start really thinking about the experience. And I think that helps a lot as a comedian, because now when I'm on stage, I'm like, I want to do the stuff that's important to me. I want to tell my story through comedy, but then I also am thinking like, where do I find everyone that's watching, and thinking about them.
Yeah. I've found the most effective way that I can get people to treat our place seriously as performers is to, first of all, not tell them that. Like, I don't. I don't ever tell people, hey, I need you to not fuck this up. In every Avails email, instead, I close with, thank you guys for doing great last month.
Yeah.
I put the thing on them to keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I try to make sure everyone understands that spots are scarce. Our most successful comedians are giving it their all when they show up, because now we've passed more comedians. We're not the kind of place you get up every week. Our most booked guys get up every 4 weeks. Our least booked guys get up every 6. It's just, we're on a different cycle now because we don't have enough time slots in the week. We're focusing on quality over quantity. But when you get that spot, it's going to be good. We're going to treat you good when you get there. We're going to film it with the good cameras. You're going to get the video for free. We're not going to charge you $25 for a video of yourself. There's like a lot we do to make the shows good when you get there. So in your head, you're not going to come fuck around because it's the only spot you have here this month, and it's going to be sold out when you get here. That's different to other clubs I've worked where the Avails emails include things like, hey, we know we're 3 months behind on paying you guys. It's coming eventually. Stop asking. Not to throw shade, because anyone who's on that email list knows what I'm talking about.
I'm still waiting for that Venmo.
So like, when you don't treat people like you're mad at them, they do better. And I think people don't realize that, like, this sort of like, heavy-handed approach of like putting people under the gun like that isn't the best way to get a good performance out of them. The hardest I've bombed are on audition showcases.
Yeah.
Like my brain is wired as an entertainer to give the people what they want, and some nights it feels like they want you to fail.
Yeah. No, your job as a comedian is to bring fun to the room.
Yes.
And you can't in the best comedians can manufacture that out of nothing.
Yes.
But the best experiences are where the room is ready, you're having fun, the comedians are having fun. Everyone is not like, there's a healthy competition where it's like, oh, these just crushed, I gotta fucking get on that. But there's not, it's not like, I want, like, when the best shows that we have is when all the comedians here are comedians that we all love, and we run in the room to see them, and like we want to see what they're gonna try, and it's super fun, and that's like the right vibe.
I like that kind of competition. I don't like the vibe of putting people against each other. Like, I don't like the types of like audition showcases where you know there's a quota for how hard you can succeed. Oh, we're only picking 2 or whatever.
Right.
How about just pick the best? How about just set a bar for what you're looking for and pick the people who meet that? Maybe this week it's 0. Maybe next week it's 8. I don't know. Maybe all the good people showed up that week. I don't know. It's also why we don't do these like in-person audition showcases, in addition to not wanting to do bringers in general, not wanting to make people bring to get on stage. I would rather just keep with the video approach. We have people send us videos, we watch them. Sometimes the first one doesn't get you in, sometimes the second one does. I don't know. Just every time you got a new video, send us a new video. I don't want to make someone drag every person they've ever met, all their coworkers, to our club, cram the place full of people. Sure, I'd love to take their money, but it's never the show you want it.
And also like don't like clubs I don't think should be doing bringer shows, but
it's weird.
I always say that you should, every show can be a bringer show. If you're like anyone, I mean, besides like the sold out shows already, but it's like if you contact a club and you're like, hey, I have 9 people that want to come see me perform on a Thursday, you probably could get on the show.
We're the only place that doesn't do that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say there's plenty of places that don't do that.
Places
We're
that
one of the
do that,
places that doesn't do that.
And like we haven't had that experience.
Yeah. I mean, no one does it either. I'm just saying, like, if that's not a bad. If you're gonna do a bringer, you don't have to do a bringer. Like,
but if we get that email, I'm calling up the local bar. I'm like, hey, I want to run a bar show. Now,
that's not wholly true, because when I ran a bar show, I would let people do that all the time because it's not that serious. But part of the reason we don't do it is on our primetime shows, we have no trouble moving tickets.
Right.
But I'm like, if you can bring enough people to fill the room, I'll give you a Sunday. Just produce a show.
Exactly.
I'm telling people, if you can bring people out, get somewhere with no room fee or an agreeable door deal, and just run a show, because you will learn something in the process. No amount of like mentorship from some club booker can help you more than learning how to do the thing yourself by just doing it a place that wants you there.
I'd love to talk about indie show production and how that interfaces with our venue, and like I'm sure you guys experience as well. Sure.
Probably not as much as you guys do, but we are all. This is definitely a smaller community than, and less like. Well, Bushwick is a cooler place. Like, there's more artists there, and there's more people who are willing, I think, to try new things and to go out more. I think here's like a little bit of an older crowd, and a lot of it's like Greeks and just like.
What's the ratio of shows you guys do that you produce in-house versus ones where someone comes to you with an idea and you run it there?
We have done very little in-house production. We're also like our thing is we are trying to pivot to become a fully like a media company. You know, I still tell people out on the street, like, you know, if they ask us what's Grove 34, I say we're a comedy club, because then I'm selling you a ticket. But eventually I see the stage for us as a stage for the production of the media that we are working on. And not to say I still love it as a comedy club, but we've done produced shows in the past. I don't like doing it because I haven't had the time to make it as good as I want yet. So even though we've done a bunch of them, we've done them successfully. We put a pause to that, and we're gonna start again doing it where like we do it right and like we market it correctly. But so basically we have other producers that produce shows, and then we produce like just headliner shows. Right.
That's what I always saw you guys as when I look at, you know, what's going on at other clubs throughout the week. Because it seems like you guys were doing more of the headliner stuff.
Yeah.
QED does some stand-up showcases, some storytelling stuff like that.
There's a mix over there.
We are strictly stand-up showcases on our
So
primetime
far-
spots.
You guys have done some headliner stuff, though, right?
We've done a couple headliner stuff.
We do.
We
do some traveling headliners. We do some local headliners.
We've even
You just had Martin Phillips there the other day, right?
Yes,
I,
we did.
I started with Martin
he's
in Virginia. He's so fucking good. He's also a great dude, too.
Yeah,
like,
genuine nice dude to work with. And then there's still a little bit of room for oddball things.
Yeah.
Like we have Ross Belsky coming in with his plays and January 6th the musical, like those kinds of things. So there's room. We're trying to experiment more with event rental and things like that to bring in other things. But for our main priority, it's all right, we need to make sure that stand up is coming in and it's doing well. With indie production, it's such an interesting case because venues vary widely in what they expect.
Yeah.
I've produced shows at venues where it's you get 5 people in the room, we're running it, and we're going to have a fun time, whatever, and I'm just going to collect all the drink money. It doesn't really matter at that point. But for other venues, they're no, you need to sell this many tickets, and if you don't sell this many tickets, then you're not coming back, and if you don't come back, then you're never going to see work in this town again, and there's this very different pressure for venues. But from now I'm seeing it from the venue perspective. I'm well, we're giving you the space on what we think is a great deal.
Yeah.
$5 ticket fee.
We're setting up the chairs. We're turning on all of our equipment. We're getting
And if you're coming in with a handful of 5 people who paid for a ticket and everyone else is a comic trying to get booked, that's not a good show experience for the people who attend, and they're going to think of us as the venue as, this venue runs a weird show. I didn't really like that place. We have to protect our own brand and our own, house in that sense.
Yeah.
Now, conversely, that usually means all right, we're very particular about independent shows that we bring, as well as headliners. We're we're really assessing what can they do, can they sell, these kinds of things, because the worst feeling for an audience member is being the only person in the room laughing. And when it's 5 people in the room, there's a 20% chance on the given laugh that you're the only person laughing. So there is a sense that we want to have shows that are successful that bring people in, but also they got to be, most of the time it's stand-up focused. There's got to be a real emphasis that, hey, we are a comedy club. We're going to do stand-up. Here's what we can do with it.
I will also say to aspiring independent producers, you have to spend just a little bit more time working on your pitches and figuring out what you're pitching and why, because you will greatly reduce the amount of your own and other people's time you waste if you do that.
Yeah.
I came from, before I went into business with these guys and we opened this club, I at one point ran a weekly or monthly show at every other comedy club in Brooklyn at some point. And I've been in the machine in various places. And I think the first thing I would tell people is that if you're going to be pitching to something that's way above where you've been in the past, and I don't even mean that we're, the highest stage in the land or whatever, but if you have run 0 shows and you were pitching to an actual comedy club, you either have to start somewhere else first and just build up a little bit of a track record, or your cousin is Stavros Halkias or something. If your pitch is, hey, I've never run a show before, but I have the most famous comedian ever on speed dial, I'll maybe give you a try based on that. But it's much better to say, okay, I've only been doing this for 6 months, but my last 6 monthly shows at such and such bar sold this amount of tickets. Yeah. Here's a couple of comedians we worked with in the last couple months. It takes you all of 2 minutes to write that, and you're much more likely to get a response, whereas you could spend the same amount of time writing about how much fun we're going to have. And I'm reading that as someone who loves fun, and I'm you're just not convincing me. And I'm a big fan of fun.
Yeah.
Never forget, though, New York is entertainment dense. You're competing with a lot of things. If you just say, I want a stand-up show, I have people do stand-up. And I'm a lot of people can run that kind of show.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to sell tickets on I'll do a Wednesday, I'm you have to realize that's a much different beast. I'm not letting you produce Friday night because that's our thing.
Yeah.
You got to come up with something either unique or interesting, or come up with a marketing strategy or something, or some way to convince us as a venue that, hey, we can trust you with this time. It's going to be worth it. I'm going to be able to come from work in my day job, open the place up, run our stuff, give you the time, because I know that it's going to be good for everyone involved.
Yeah, I just tell when people ask, I just tell them how hard it is to produce something and how to do it well, and how it requires like a lot of dedication and a lot of work, and most people will just get like okay, never mind, like that's because that's not what they want. But it's like, but also like if someone is willing to put in the work, then it shows do take some time to grow. So like I'm willing to like give let that happen, as long as you're seeing like the person doing all the right stuff,
right? And
if they don't give a shit about the poster, if they don't give a shit about like know marketing or coming up with anything creative other than just like posting on their Instagram, like it's not you could just tell. It's like, oh yeah you just want to I want to do a show called Tradesies.
Okay, what's the what?
And it's just like everyone booking people who.
I'll say this, like I was the indie producer who was booking people for the sense of getting spots back.
Yeah.
There's nothing I think inherently wrong with that, but you're in a different world when you're in independent stuff versus when you move to the venue. Like,
sure.
When you're trying to construct a show, it's like, I put this on, like they'll be fine, and I'll get a little spot after it. We're past the point of this being a problem. This may have been like a problem like 10 years ago where amount of supply was so low, where it's like there's not that many comedians. Oh, you're booking that person just to get a spot on their show. That's so weird. Now it's like I'm so desperate to get anything because it's just the tree is so bare. Yeah, I'll book this person with the idea of getting a spot in their show later. Mm-hmm. And look, you're an independent producer curating for a different kind of audience on a non-consistent basis. All right, so you booked for this practice. Hopefully the show is still good. Probably they have a decent time, and you can move on with your life. You're not beholden to rent. You're not beholden to returnees. You're not beholden to all these people and parties.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
See, I think I'll be the odd man out here. I've regretted every trade I've ever taken.
Really?
I would never do it again. I've only traded with a couple of people a couple of times, and I felt terrible about it. And it's always because the show that I wound up doing in the trade was not one that I would have particularly given a shit about doing or had any positive experience having done. And the comic I booked in that trade was never someone who positively contributed to the show I put them on, even if my show was also not great at the time. I don't count it as trades when there's a comedian I actually like who actually likes me, and we book each other back and forth with no transaction system. If it's not a one-to-one, you get me, I get you. If it's just sometimes you just do this person's show, sometimes they do yours.
I'll go to bed, but I don't want to feel like a whore.
Right.
It's different because I also think there's a lot of people who think trading happens more than it does, when the reality is this is just a community and people do each other's shows.
It's just a community,
Anytime it's been proposed to me as a trade,
it's trades when
enacted
the comics
as a
are
trade.
bad.
Yes. It's trades when I don't like it. No, it's trades when someone hits me up like, want to trade. That's when it's a trade. When I just know who you are and you know who I am.
Question mark?
Yeah. If I know sometimes I can do someone's show and sometimes they do our club, that's not a trade. It's a trade when someone starts wheeling and dealing in the DMs. And that's always wound up in a scenario where that person then feels entitled to more bookings after the fact when they bombed on the trade spot. Like, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus here because
names.
No, because this is someone who doesn't need it. There is no comedian that there's no comedian that I'm thinking of here where I'm like, we got to bring this guy to justice. I'm just picturing myself in some random restaurant far away from home, waiting to do my 8 minutes to some people who don't want to see me. I'm like, why did I do trade to wind up here?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I could have done an open mic.
Yeah, I mean, I'll sometimes. My roommates are Andrew Manning and Eric Asker, and one time we went to a mic. We all went to a mic down the street that was like 6 people, and they didn't have a microphone. And I was like, we could have literally just done this in the living room. Like, there's really no point in.
Like, what do you think about this joke?
Like yeah. What do you think about this joke? Whatever. All right. So last couple of things I want to talk to you about. Tell me about some of the bigger challenges that you didn't expect since opening up. In any interpersonal stuff that it's like, we're running with business partners is, I'm sure, challenging as you learn to work with each other, learn to deal with everyone's flaws and frustrations, and then how to utilize each other's strengths and like how to do that. Also, like, a bunch of weird things that you learn what have you learned about marketing? That's a fun one that I love talking about. And then also in branding, because eventually like Bushwick Comedy Club, like you got the hat on already. That's great.
Yeah.
It's you want it to be. You want it to be something that it becomes more and more real the longer it exists. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure you have thought a lot about that. And then the last thing we'll close on is just where do you see it in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah. I'll take up one of the things I stand on until the day I die. Fuck every tech company that's involved in marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
They just siphon money from you to give you the crumb of an ad click.
You talk about like a Facebook ad? Yeah, fuck. Yeah, those
Googles,
don't work at all.
I hate them. And like we found success on Google and like things seem to be happening, but they make it so obtuse. They just take your money. And to a lot of people, it's like a requirement to even have your name seen by customers. Yeah. So I firmly stand like they've made our world for the worst, and I hate them. I applied to them at some point. So like, by the way, if my current job doesn't work out, let me know. That's something I truly like. Our business, like a lot of parts of our business, are controlled by entities that we don't have control over.
Yeah.
That are purely external. Just take your money. Just like. Honestly, you just kind of have to take it. So that sucks. Things I've truly enjoyed. I love these guys. I love how we don't always agree.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird thing to say, but we each have a vision and we're trying to create something. And with that disagreement, there's times where I'm stressed. There's times like, why do you think this? This doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, we come to a conclusion and we'd be able to solve real legitimate problems together.
Yeah.
That kind of process, if you're not able to take in the opinion of those you're working with and collaborating with, if you're not able to be empathetic or see perspectives outside of your own, you will fail 100%. So being able to say to myself, like, I have confidence that if I have something to bring up, they will listen. And if they bring up something, I will listen and give genuine, like, true feedback. That's something I've learned is invaluable. Better than any rent agreements or any marketing deal or anything like that. If you can work together with the people that you signed up to do something with, good things will happen. It's can extend beyond, venues and comedy in general. It's a life lesson that I feel like I've learned and genuinely makes me feel like I'm a better person because of it.
Yeah.
5 years from now, I think the club is still rolling strong. I think we have more time slots, more opportunities, more stand-up in general just happening. I don't know if because in 5 years, that's when our first exit potential for our leases. Do we expand? Do we?
Yeah.
I have no concept of that happening. But what I do know is 5 years from now, like, I want us to be open. I want people having the same amazing nights as they're having right now. And for my own career, I just want to be happy and, satisfied that I do with what I do every day. Cool. Whatever that may be. If it's comedy purely, if it's everything else in my life, maybe I find a girlfriend looking. Who knows? But I see myself as being in New York City and living a good life thanks to, the people around me.
Cool.
I think one of the interesting challenges is recognizing how people's different backgrounds outside of the work you're currently doing influence their conflict resolution style. When you work at an existing business that's already been around before you got there, there's channels for how you have to pitch ideas and how you have to resolve differences in execution. But when you're building something from the ground up, especially one that doesn't have a central leader that everyone follows, you have to, in real time, reconcile your different approaches to how you resolve things. Jad comes from a media and journalism background, so narrative and explanation and the art of the pitch is a lot more important to him than it is to me.
Yeah.
He sometimes will think that I can't explain where I'm coming from, when in reality, that is not a step I built into my process. I can absolutely explain where I'm coming from, but you're stopping me in my tracks to do that because I forgot that we do that.
Yeah.
I come from a background of working in tech startups or working in like food service and like food distribution and manufacturing. A lot of what I have done in more defined roles has been predicated on being hired for my experience and only being questioned at periodic intervals. It's not an ego thing of like, don't question me, I know what I'm doing. It's that in my head, the workflow, doing the work and talking about the work are two separate activities that we do at different times of the day. And where he comes from in the journalism world, doing the work and talking about the work are inherently intertwined because the work is talking. And so I have had to work through, I think the biggest challenge being nothing to do with running the shows or marketing the shows or dealing with talent or dealing with customers, aside from like the rare like troublesome customer who leaves bad reviews or whatever. The biggest challenge is reconciling how we may have the same end goal and very different ideas of the steps in between and different tactics for how we execute those steps. And sometimes if you're not someone who has a lot of perspective and history in this, it can be hard to realize and stop for a moment and go, we're trying to accomplish the same thing and we're coming at it from different angles, and that's why we're butting heads. We're not butting heads because we're opposed to each other. We're butting heads because we're facing the same thing from different sides. And so the hardest thing has had nothing to do with running the business itself. The hardest thing is people. The business is easy comparatively. I have had so many harder jobs that were so much less rewarding that the day-to-day stress of running this business doesn't even compute in my head, because selling out next weekend is so much simpler than waking up in the morning at a time you didn't decide to go make someone else rich while you make just enough to wake up tomorrow and do it again. That hurts so much more than arguing with your business partner about how we're going to accomplish this shared goal. And I think the other thing that's been crazy for me is that I now fully make my own schedule. This was not a thing up until very recently. I'm not full-time comedy, but all of my other money comes from freelancing now. And so I went from, for 5 years straight, I woke up at 6 a.m, 7 days a week, because if I slept in on weekends, I would be fucked on Monday, to now I make my own schedule 100% of the time. Things only happen for me because I decided that was the time of day we do that thing. And that is really, really hard. Freedom is extremely difficult. The thing they oversell you on is that you can do anything. But what they don't say is the other side of you can do anything is you have to do everything. I love what we do, and I really enjoy the freedom and the flexibility in it, but the wide open perspectives come with no lines to color between. We are doing things from scratch on a daily basis because any lessons learned from other people have expired by now. People taught us so many things up to opening that were extremely helpful, and there's nothing they can teach us anymore because now we exist. We are now our own business with our own challenges and our own needs and our own customers, and anything anyone else taught us has now become outdated because we've evolved into our own entity. Things that might work for you guys here might be completely different for us because of demographic differences, or just a different room size, or a different room shape, or a different clientele of comedians and producers you work with. And so all the wisdom we've absorbed now has to take a backseat to our own wisdom from a few months of doing this. So like, to tie that into where I see us going in the future, I don't want to change the fundamental things that make us what we were to begin with. The only thing I want to do is more of what we have already done. And I don't mean getting complacent and stopping, but I mean I don't want more chairs. We're in a 50-seater right now, and if we ever move locations, I don't want more than 70, because I don't ever want to have a room so big that 50 is a failure. I don't ever want to sell 50 tickets on a Friday night and look at an 150-seater room and go, fuck, we're only a third full. I want to be able to celebrate the same victories we celebrate today 5 years from now because we didn't electively make our lives harder. I want to keep the setup of the room the same. I want to keep the booking process the same. I just want to do it every night of the week. I want to do more of what already works, because I think if we ever let ourselves start chasing something too much bigger than that in scale, we will start compromising what made it so special in the first place. And there are opportunities to expand on that without compromising that, but I need to make sure that anything we look at down the road doesn't start taking steps away from what made us succeed out the gate.
Yeah, I think our model is very successful, and just the idea of saying, oh, you know what? I don't need to make this into another thing. Just do more of that. Just do maybe another one, or just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
To Kyle's credit, the idea of freedom is at the core something that makes us like, that's like what we all pursue.
Yeah.
Not just as comedians.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in general desire freedom, and that means a lot of different things to different people. But being able to wake up and say, this day is mine, I'm crafting it for myself, and I get to go to sleep and do the same thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is paramount.
It's that, you know, paradox where it's like, yeah, you have this freedom now, and you finally don't have to wake up at 6 to go work for some other thing.
You should, by the way, take that clip and you should have Kyle with a little filter and then have funk music playing over it and say something about, like, I'm the Sigma male because I have freedom. That's just
maybe we will. No, but the other side of that is like you also like now you have to work twice as hard without the incentive of your boss getting fired.
Right.
Like it's like your dream falls apart if you don't do it. But like you said, it's like you have to remember that energy of like, this is where I could be. You could be on the bus at 6 a.m. going to a fucking job, and so you have to remember that and not get complacent.
That's me still. I'm the only one with the full-time job right now. So.
The other thing I've learned is that hard work is easier than lingering dread. I would rather be tired than terrified.
Yeah, the other thing about that, though, it's like that we've also learned is like hard work doesn't necessarily solve all your problems. Like it definitely is required, but it's also like there's times where you have to like really go, hey, what's like, we have to be creative and we have to give us some space. And like, even like, you know, it's like you could do everything, and it's like if you're not having fun, you're missing the point. So it's like, especially that's their business we're in. So it's like you have to like be like, okay, where's the inspiration, and like finding that and finding like and even including like doing all the steps, like coming up with creative solutions to make something work also requires like creativity. And then once you see it, then you unlock the energy to do it.
Yes.
And so you have to find those kinds of things, and that takes you can't just like sit and like, I'm going to be up early and do it. And it's like, you need to like kind of give yourself a little space, but that's like a harder thing. That it's a responsibility, not rather than just a task that you can check off.
I also, if any young impressionable viewers stumble upon this and think that I am one of those people that like fetishizes hard work, I'm actually the opposite. My life is so easy right now, and it's because I worked so hard for so long and learned so many things that my life got easier like 6 weeks ago. Like things just got better for me because I finally got in a place where now my life would be really hard if I didn't already learn all of this stuff a long time ago. But now I just only do things that I know how to do. So many jobs are accepting that you're going to try to force a square peg into a round hole over and over again because you need a paycheck. And what people don't realize is that there are a lot of easily attainable jobs that most of us are not cut out for. I was serving, bartending, working in warehouses and shit for the longest time for very little money, and hard work did not elevate me out of that situation. Learning elevated me out of that. You know, I never finished college. I'm a business school dropout. But just remembering things that I've done and getting better at them has improved my life so much more than waking up at 6 a.m. ever could. This idea that everyone has to hustle and grind 24 hours a day is not true. What you have to do is learn how to apply what you're actually good at in a way that's valuable to other people so you don't starve. And now that I just do that every day, my life is so much less stressful.
Learning a valuable skill is like, I took the engineering route.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. All these things that require me to spend a decade working my ass off for like essentially pennies compared to, then you make a lot of money, but it's like, you're going to lose so much time. I'd rather just learn a useful skill and apply it for either people who want it, who will pay me, or for myself.
Yeah.
And not to get too beyond the pale of comedy club discussion, but like, education's the most important thing. Find something that you want to do, that you're good at, that you can do for other people or for yourself to make.
Yeah.
And if you're like a working adult who doesn't have the time to put yourself through school, like the position I was in, if you're a comedian who's balancing a job and doing spots, you got to start watching YouTube videos about Photoshop or something.
Yeah.
Just
graphic design, I always say, like, graphic design is a universal skill.
Or video editing.
There's no place you can go where graphic design isn't
now
needed.
Video editing has become that as well.
Just even if you can't do it every day, every weekend, watch a 1-hour video about Adobe Premiere or something. And if you do that for a year, you will be qualified for entry-level positions. You could get freelance work or actual salary work for not amazing money, but consistent money, just editing photos or something. I designed bags of coffee for years. All I did, I designed labeling for coffee packaging for years because I knew Photoshop. I learned it as a kid. And that elevated me out of like near homelessness because I knew Photoshop.
Who designed the logo?
I did.
You did? Nice.
I designed all sorts of shit. You can go, and I don't even work for that company anymore, but you can go into like most grocery stores in Bushwick or Williamsburg and see coffee that I designed on the shelf.
Hell yeah.
And every time I see that, I'm like, okay, that's
Send
cool.
me a picture of one. Maybe I'll put it in.
I will make it the and
this logo and
Yes.
everything
I like it.
that he's designed for like the club is Kyle's.
I did this,
machinations.
I did our logo. I did our like all of our visual branding and like how it applies to our social media and our website. Because one thing I noticed was that comedy club websites generally aren't very good. The smaller independently run ones are actually usually a little bit better because they don't have so much bloat and nonsense on them. If you go to a website like you guys or the QED one, at least there's not a bunch of broken, confusing pages and shit. It's a functional website. Well, I wanted to take ours to the next level where it looks slick. I want every page to look like the logo does.
What do you guys use?
So we use Wix.
Wix.
And it's a little pricier. You pay more per month. You pay a little bit more per month, but it allowed us to do a lot of things on the website very quickly. I built that website in like less than a week. We did it in a couple of days.
And then the fees compared to every other sort of website and ticket solution, massive improvement.
It's been great, but I found the like attention to detail of setting something like that up matters, because I used to have this impression that our social media mattered more than it actually does. It does matter, and people do check it for updates. But I have realized that is one thing I forgot to mention. One of the big things I've learned, the main way people interact with our business online is not our social media presence. It's bushwickcomedy.com. People go directly to our website. Our Instagram does not lead them there. Even though we link there a lot, a tiny fraction of our business comes from Instagram organic.
There's a lot of people
Googling
Googling comedy Bushwick.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people who
exactly.
search Instagram and they're like, ah ha ha, and then they move on. And that's it. Their only interaction.
And a lot of our Instagram followers now already know about us, so if they come back to a show, they just go to the website for the lineups. So I put a lot more effort into making our website look good than anything else, because I've realized that to carry the image of what I want to project to people who come to see us, I have to put it on there as opposed to putting it on social media or anywhere else. So there's a lot of companies, there's at least a few companies that offer comedy club specific website templates, and I didn't use any of them. First of all, because I'm paranoid. I know one of them is owned by one of the co-owners of another club, and I don't want to give him my email list. And second of all, I don't like their layouts. The one thing I'm very controlling about and very like non-budging on is design. I think when we democratized design and made it accessible and let anyone be a designer, it was cool how we lowered the barrier to entry, but we also made design as a whole worse. We made the entirety of design on the internet look worse when Canva came out overnight. Overnight, the average Canva user is worse at Canva than the average Photoshop user is at Photoshop. And I say this as someone who uses Canva. I have Photoshop.
Hannah talked when Hannah was here. We talked about the same thing. It's like we all recognize a Canva poster. Like
I use Photoshop. I have Photoshop. 75% of our imaging online is done in Canva. I just don't use templates.
Yeah. Canva is fine. It is, but it is like you could be really lazy.
Yes, if you are a comedy producer who is watching this and you have Canva, first of all, don't use any of the templates. Second of all, Don't use any of the recommended fonts. Scroll through the font list, find something that looks cool. Use photos of your lineup or photos of the venue or just a picture of something sick like a motorcycle. If you just do that, if you just Google Harley Davidson, download a motorcycle, and type comedy show over it in a font, it will look cooler than a template. I promise you.
Also, don't use a picture of that stupid microphone that no one's used in
I'm
the Elvis microphone. Hey, little baby.
I'm making it. I'm working on a YouTube video that will come out eventually, but it is how to make a comedy show poster.
Yes,
and it is. It'll start with how not to. It's one of those things.
Yes.
It's like here's what you should do. You should don't put any effort into it. You should do it on Microsoft Paint. You should, if you have no artistic skills whatsoever, you shouldn't find someone to do it. It's only the first thing everybody sees about your thing. Right. That's what you should definitely do. But I'm gonna go through. Have you guys are on the Facebook group? Like the Bad Comedy Flyers?
Bad Comedy Flyers, yeah. Yes, I'm a regular.
Master work there.
The best thing you can do if you just started producing a comedy show and you've never done it before, join Bad Comedy Flyers and Comedy Complaints and just read the last week of posts on both of them. You will learn
70 people on the flyer.
Yes, you will learn so much. Oh, here's one thing that I think is crazy. Don't put everyone's headshots on it like they're the Brady Bunch. Yeah. If there's a headliner, just put the headliner and put everyone else's names at the bottom. Mm-hmm. What we do is we use a photo of someone on the lineup, but that photo's taken in the venue itself. Right. We use a photo of a comic who's already done our show before. Yeah. So we're not telling you this guy's the headliner. We're telling you this is one of the comics that'll be there. But more importantly, the visual information tells you what the room looks like.
I haven't even totally decided if it's actually good to even have the names of comics that people don't know on the poster. And there's a lot of debates, and I understand both of them.
There's a lot of
but part of me thinks one audience you're tapping into is people who they want to go see an underground comedy show.
Yes.
That's there's going to be some new upcoming talent that they're not going to be aware of.
I don't
a name that they're I don't know who that is. That hurts their, and I've had Sean Donnelly was here one time. He's the best shows I've ever done where I'm booked as the surprise headliner. It's you should change your name to surprise headliner.
So Don't Tell Comedy made a very good point of not advertising their lineups and getting people to trust their brand.
Yeah.
I do the opposite because I believe what they're doing, first of all, is clearly working for them, but I don't want to copy someone else's and compete directly with them.
Different business model.
I believe that the best thing I can do is showing our work. Mm-hmm. I believe that what we have lined up every night justifies the ticket, and I will play our whole hand all at once every time. There's no surprise headliners. There's no drop-ins at all. This is who we have. And you may not have heard of all of them, but chances are people who follow comedy have heard of some people throughout the month. So what I'm trying to instill is a sense of confidence of hey, these comics you haven't heard of are on the level to be booked with the ones you have.
Sure.
I'm trying to extend that confidence down the ballot.
I get that for sure. It's also you can look them up.
Yes.
Look them up beforehand.
Also,
it's also good for them, the comics to see themselves on a poster.
They're more likely to share it.
They're most likely to share it and not forget about the show.
Yes. Right. People will share it if their name is at the bottom and say, I'm on this one, and that moves tickets.
I understand.
People think comics aren't a draw. People think, in New York, the comic's not the draw. That's not wholly true.
No.
We have a lot of comics that move tickets at our club in small quantities, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
We have guys where I book them, and I think 2 or 3 people might see the tag and just pull up tonight.
Right.
And spreading those guys throughout the month is just an extra way to push the club.
And doing the math, it's we didn't pay anything for that. We sent out a story, and that gets people through the door who like the comic. Enjoy the club and see what else we have to offer, and then they'll come back, and then they'll bring their friends, and blah blah blah.
People bring their friends because we're not a bringer. Comedians will, when their friends are like, "What show can I see you at?" They'll tell them to come to ours because they know that they can BYOB. They know they're only going to pay $10 to $15.
There's a little obligation.
Yeah,
that's a cheap ticket. That's what I think makes our club so inviting.
Hold on one second.
Oh, you good?
Go for it.
It's a lot easier there to convince people to come out and to convince people to tell people. Also, I list everyone's credits on the website, not because I think someone's going to go, not because I think someone's going to go, oh, that guy from Comedy Central is there. I like Comedy Central. I'll like the show. But because I'm trying to instill this tiny bit of confidence in our people who who buy tickets to say, look, you haven't heard of everyone on this lineup, but we're pulling just various working comedians from various places. I'm more showing, hey, this is the spread of how far-reaching we are in the comedy industry, as opposed to, oh, you got to see this very famous person. You're looking down the lineup and you go, okay, I don't know most of these names, but that guy was on Comedy Central. That person's a writer for The Onion. That person's a writer for this other publication. You scroll down and you go, oh, okay, so this is a comedy club full of working comedians. Right. That's the thing I'm trying to project to people. Isn't like, hey, we have the most famous celebrities. It's like, this is where people who work in comedy go to tell jokes.
One of the dumbest but funniest interactions I have with friends who aren't comedians at all, who like, oh, I went to the show at the Cellar. Oh, there was this guy. I can't remember his name. I don't remember. And I'm like, what did he look like? He was bald. He was yelling. He was angry. I was like, was it Bill Burr? Yeah, that's who it was. And I'm like, what? How do you not remember? It's Bill Burr. But people sometimes just had this interaction, and a lot of people do. It's like, I go to the comedy club and I see the funny comedian. I'll never remember their name, but I had a fun time, and then they go home.
Yo, that reminded me, and here's one that I can name them by name because they're out of business. You guys remember LOL Times Square?
Yeah.
You remember when they turned away Bill Burr when he tried to do a drop-in? Bill Burr was headlining a theater like in the neighborhood, and he dropped by LOL because one of his openers told him about the club. He gets there and he's like, yeah, I want to see if I could just like do 8 minutes or whatever. I got a new bit I want to try. And the owner told him to piss off. So then he goes on his podcast and he's like, yeah, I tried to go to this little shithole comedy club in Times Square. They wouldn't let me do 10. And his face is on the billboard across the street. And so then someone asks him on Google Business, do you know who Bill Burr is? And the owner replies, what about him?
Yeah, that club was awful. It was absolutely
my first day living in New York, I interviewed for a job there and didn't get it. Like literally my first full day living here, I had no job lined up. I went to everywhere that listed walk-in interview on Craigslist. And one of them was bartending at LOL, and they did not think I had the chops. I didn't. I objectively did not have the chops.
Did you had a thing? You had a thing? I didn't see it, but I heard about it. Like you had a online. Were you guys in the New York Times or something? And
yes.
What? Do you want to talk about that?
Well,
I don't care if you.
So I have my own unique take on that. What was your take on that?
My take was, me and Jed were interviewed, and like Kyle got some comments, I think, but basically I was
very cool to get the interview.
It was very cool to get the interview. My impression was the journalist Jason just kind of wanted to get our story, and more specifically targeted our booking practices, because we came up with kind of a bold statement, which is, hey, we book based off of tapes, and like a lot of clubs don't do that.
Yeah.
And it sounds very divisive at first, but when I analyze, clubs have so many different structures that when the article was written, I was like, he kind of, in a weird way, it's like he kind of forgot that this is New York City. Like, I'm not talking about a club in Madison, Wisconsin, where it's just like bringing headliners. Like, there's so much talent here that if you have structures around booking that's not looking at it, evaluating, and having it on, you are closing yourself out from so many comedians to be able to, like, not only like, oh, they're funny. You are going to lose business because people have a worse time at your institution and your venue, and they will not come back.
Yeah.
By making sure we can take advantage of as much of that massive supply by saying, hey, we look at all these tapes. You submit them. We look at them. We like you. We say yes. That just opens the floodgates to anyone to submit. Now, does that mean we'll catch every single person that would be a positive contributor? No, people fall.
So this is what you were saying in the article. You were saying all this.
Look, we're saying clubs aren't doing this. They are missing out. There is a gap in the market that we can fill by just giving an open process.
Yeah.
By just saying, send it here and we'll look at it. Yeah. There are clubs here that just refuse to open up themselves to evaluating talent. They just don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's a damn shame, because I view them comedically like, you're missing out. I view them as a business. You're missing out. I view it as just someone who enjoys the art, as you are missing out.
Sure.
You had to take advantage of being in New York City. Why are you not taking advantage of it?
Yeah.
You're spending all this money on rent. You're spending all this money to be here, to get the service. you have all these comics in the palm of your hand, and you're refusing to do your job as a talent acquisition. Because what reason? It's too much work. I can't watch all the Steves. That's your job.
Yeah.
You're the club. Book the club. Bring in people from around you. They're right here clamoring. Why are you not opening yourselves up to at least evaluating them? No, you have to bring 5 people and make me $150 for even looking in the direction. Like, they'll make us hundreds more dollars by just bringing their best to us.
Okay. So that was you put that out there. And
right. We put out the article.
What was the response? And was it?
Well, so when they started running it as an ad for the New York Times, like the Times started boosting the Facebook posts, like spending their own money.
They ran it. What do you mean they ran it as an ad?
Well, okay, so when you post an article to your publication and it's linked to your social media account, it also makes a snapshot article of it. So you know how, like, if you scroll Facebook, you'll see like Washington Post or New York Times or whatever, and there'll be a little summary of a thing, and there'll be a link to the article. If you keep seeing the same one over and over again, it's because that publication is running it as a boosted post. New York Times left this as a boosted post for like months on end.
That's great for you guys.
Well,
That's great.
Yes and no, because I wouldn't say it was ever like a bad thing. It just became what I would call the bad take factory. Mm-hmm. The comment section on the Facebook version of the article was just a wall of people misunderstanding the point. And it got to the point where I was like, hey, man, you guys can stop running the ad. You're not bringing us business. We're bringing us business. When the ad first dropped, we got a lot of Instagram followers, which was sick. The day it came out, we got like 200 followers, which was awesome. But in the following weeks, all it did was drag in people from other states going, well, that's not how it is at my club in San Francisco.
And I'm like, congratulations, you're in San Francisco.
But
I mean, I'm in the camp where it's all good. Yeah. It's all good.
My issue with the whole thing was that I have all the respect in the world for Zinnemann and his writing, and I got all the respect in the world for Jad and his insane PR skills. But this was Jad's story, and this was Jason's take on that story. Mm-hmm. I was a side character in this whole thing that does not wholly agree with any of the points made, while I do agree with some of them. And some people came to me after the fact as if this was my article, when I am as much a side character to this article as the other people at random ass clubs they interviewed. Yeah. They interviewed people from like the Cellar and New York Comedy Club and shit, and they included as much of my own words as they did theirs. So people were like, what's your take on the article? I'm like, well, that I barely contributed to it. It's a story, and I was quoted in it. But I talked to Jason for about an hour straight, and one sentence makes it in. Mm-hmm. And so my complaint isn't that. I understand how journalism works. My complaint is on other people's reading comprehension to think other things in that article are things I said or co-sign, when the only things I said are the things that have quotes around them and my name afterwards.
People have to remember that Jason is doing his job by so much.
He is an independent journalist who has his own story to tell, right. And Jad, who pitched it, is also a different comedian than me with his own background and takes.
What were you like defending from? Like
here's where I differ from it, and the reason I was wholly still ready to be interviewed for the article and stoked when it came out isn't that I disagree with it; it's that I agree with some of it. What I feel did not reflect my own experiences is that there was a heavier focus on Brooks and Jad because it interviewed them first, and that it had more time to sit with them, and that I feel like the heavier focus on them detracts from the whole picture of the balance of our organization. Yeah. There was a unintentional downplaying of the massive amount I bring to the table that rounds out our organization. People read the article and assumed it was 3 guys who were coming from the same place, when in reality, I come from a drastically different place, and that's why we are so successful. I think there was an implied youthful anger at fuck the system, we're going to do it ourselves, that I do not possess. I am not some young cat who's new to the game who's like, oh, I know better. I am going on 14-year veteran of this business who has worked within the industry in several different capacities, who brought over a decade of work experience to now doing it myself. And I think when the article glosses over the fact that I've produced shows in 5 states and things like that, it makes it seem like we were more of a long shot than we are, when in reality, we were set up for success the entire time. I think it's disingenuous to do an article about how I book things and we don't talk about spreadsheets.
Okay. And so you posted this as like like on Instagram or something?
Yes, because I think it was a good article and I agree with a lot of things said in it, but it does not reflect my take on the stance at all, because all it has is a snippet from me.
And what was your feedback from your clarification?
It's that some people, especially people originally reading the article or people looking from the outside in who don't live this business every day, do not understand the nuance and the technical approach I take to things. They look at you doing things and think you're just some scrappy punk rock DIY guy, which is easy to assume by looking at me. But I take a very tech bro approach to booking comedy.
Yeah.
I think I'm someone who's worked in tech for a long time, and I think the industry is evil and destroying the
and
world.
I'm bringing that evil to comedy.
No, it's that I want to
he needs to change.
I want to take the things that I believe in and bring them to fields that I believe in. I don't want to work in tech because I don't want to work in AI. I don't want to work for an AI company. I don't want to boil the ocean and burn the rainforest to generate pictures of Elon Musk with a gun. I think that's boring and stupid. I want to take my competency and my data-driven approach to things I give a shit about. Yeah. So the way I book lineups has nothing to do with who has the most followers. I'm playing Moneyball. I'm out there balancing strengths and weaknesses in 4D in my head and using a bunch of different spreadsheets and shit. And we didn't talk about the technical aspect at all. It sounds like our approach in the article is very idealistic and very high-minded, but I would challenge anyone who disagreed with it to actually sit down with me and watch me book a month and tell me that my system isn't amazing.
This is one thing I think Kyle deserves so much credit for.
Yeah.
Which is the line about data science and then moneyballing this stuff. That does not come out in the article.
I'm not the best booker.
So I like as an outside party could give two shits like about like what the content is. In terms of branding, though, I think it's a great idea to create the conflict. Who cares? Like you guys are whatever. Like
there's conflict. And these
there's conflict with this, like, and I'm like, oh, that's good for them because you're seeing your name, like, or seeing a name, even if it's a negative way from a club talking shit across the country. To me, that's a good thing. I think because in the 5 years from now, you'll look at it as a good thing. It's like, who gives a fuck about?
I think there's a lot about us as a business that was reflected well in that, and that's why many times I've said, look, I got all respect to the author, I got all respect to everyone interviewed in that. It's that I think there was a missing component where they never so much as implied what we actually do differently. Watching videos is actually only a fraction of what makes us different. And the entire article is predicated on this idea that other people don't watch videos. I don't think that's true. I think other people to a varying degree do watch videos. What I don't think they do is the step where we book an entire month at once. For instance, I don't book shows. I book months. I book about 16 shows at once, and it takes about 20 minutes. I don't think anyone else has a system that looks like that.
Right. I mean, that's great and interesting to me as a comedy club owner, but as a person outside, it's just, there's beefing with some comedy thing. So I think it's great in just marketing and branding, and like again, it's like I think like the Standard New York Comedy Club responded, and they're like, we'll see them in a couple of years, and it's like that's all the thing. It's like, this is just about surviving. This is just about figuring out your own thing, and like 10 years down the road, there'll be comedians that are moving into Bushwick and they have no idea who you guys are or where your story is. They're just going to know that they're trying to get in at your club.
Right.
And they're going to know that it's still there and it's been there and it's part of the community and it's like that. And you're going to be able to like...
Well, you don't have to go 10 years. We're experiencing that now.
Sure.
My thought, though, is not that it would have made for a more interesting article to solely talk about that thing,
Yeah.
but I think it would have made the conversations with our competitors more interesting. Every take they got from another club owner or booker was completely brain dead and irrelevant. And I would love to I would love to gas myself up and say that it's because I'm smarter than them, but it's also because Zinnemann presented them an argument that isn't my argument. I would bet money that if you let me sit down with any other club booker in the entire world and show them how I book, they would have no arguments with our system. It is that good. I am not the best booker in terms of connections, schmoozing, contacts. I can't get that famous of people on the phone, but I am the best at comedy Moneyball in the world. Really? There is nobody who can spread a month like I can, and I know that for a goddamn fact.
Cool. This is where Kyle also comes out. Like, Kyle believes you believe in yourself, and I think you work hard to believe in yourself. I'm very timid.
I rub some people the wrong way because I don't open my mouth unless I know what I'm talking about.
But what doesn't come out in that article is I feel like both Kyle's practices are beyond the watching the videos. That's really not covered, and that's the majority of the story.
Yeah. Yes. But that's the sauce. They don't get to see how the stuff is made.
We had not yet started operating.
Yeah.
So I think the article can't necessarily talk about things that have yet to fully happen. But when I look at that article, I look back at it with pride because we're essentially starting this discussion of, okay, what do
you're already becoming in the zeitgeist of New York City,
and also
and beyond the pale, beyond it too. And frankly, some clubs I think deserve a bit of like a introspection where it's like, hey, how do we book? How do we things? I don't want to call anyone out. I don't think it's anyone in particular. But like, look, there's a wealth of talent around you. Use it. Really, truly use it.
Sure.
Be involved in it. One of the beautiful things about comedian-owned and operated venues is that they're in and around. They see the new people. They see the people who just moved. They see everyone else. So create a pipeline that can help you use what New York City has to offer.
Oh, the other thought I have that sounds conceited on the surface until I back it up is that when people ask me, what did you learn in the months since opening? One thing that I always stress, everything that I thought I was right about, I was beyond right about. I was not wrong about a single thing that I actually believed in. I have only learned and grown more knowledgeable in the months since then. But every single thing that going into this I could hang my hat on and say, I am certain that this is better than not doing this. I was right about all of that. Because people will look at that and think, oh, you got lucky or you conceded if they don't know the full story, which is that I was right about that because I learned over the course of years how things work, and then I used the knowledge I had gained over those years to do the thing I knew how to do. And when the article sums that up in like a fraction of a sentence, it's easy for people to look at me and go, oh, that person's crazy. And I'm not. I am manic. There's a difference. Not every manic person is crazy. We're like squares and rectangles. My issues are purely personality based.
And those are my favorite people. Is you have everyone is flawed in their own beautiful ways, and if you can learn to appreciate it, you get to watch the show instead of hate on it. Okay, thank you guys for doing this. I'm really excited to have talked with you, and I'm really excited for what you guys are doing in Bushwick. I think it's going to be awesome, and I'm glad to know you guys at the start of it. So that's really cool, and I want to make a greater video about like some of this, like the new and upcoming comedy spots in New York. So I'd love to come by the club one day, not to do a spot, but just like come invite me on a day that you think is like a good like day of like whatever fun, and I'll hang out and I'll interview you guys there and take some shots of the place. And I think what you guys are doing are really cool.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Cool.
Awesome. That was fun.